Good news this week. I did not have to remember quickly, halfway through the first sentence of this podcast, to take my collar off today and stop it making jingly jingly.
Hey!
Right? Bad news.
That's a milestone, that. Oh, what's the bad news?
Right. I took it off yesterday to do some recording because I brought back Squirty Play videos for the YouTube channel because this new ADHD meds, this Concerta stuff that I know you take, Laura, seems to actually be like working really well, better than the Alvents I was on.
I'm glad.
So even though I'm really ill this week, listeners, and I'm a bit fucking annoyed that I've got no sympathy off of you listeners, right? Even though I'm ill, I was like, fuck it. Could rest. Brain need do. So I went back to playing some shit on Steam. Prostitute Simulator 2.
I just started watching that video before we recorded.
Yeah, it's actually really, it was really good. It was a great one to come back with. But anyway, I had that off. And after I was done, I needed to go to the bathroom to expel waste out of my areas, right? And thought to myself, I'll get the collar, put it on while I'm on the toilet to save time, to be efficient. Instead, while I sat there, I thought about something else, wrestling probably. Got up. I'd had it hanging on my neck to be buckled. It slid right off, right into the fucking toilet.
Oh no.
Look, I've heard stories of, like, people dropping their phone in the toilet at airports and shit like that. This somehow feels worse.
It's a hell of a thing to have to tell you, Dom. Carla's in the toilet. That thing's very important to me, so I got very upset, and I was cleaning it off. But Fee took it and is sort of doing some general restoration on it. So I didn't have to remember to take it off because it went in the toilet with my wee.
I mean,
it was just as I'd flushed as well, so I was terrified it was going to get flushed down the toilet.
Oh, no. I mean, look, better just when you flush than before you flush, I guess.
Yeah,
True.
Yeah. Like, my
Mildly
OCD and
less
everything,
pissy.
some of it manifests as fear about hygiene. I will not go near a toilet with my hands. I have never shoved my fist in a hole that quick. But yeah, that's how my week's going. I'm very sick and my collar went into toilet. How is everybody else?
My week's going pretty good. I finished a big work thing, and I played a bunch of a video game that was, pretty charming. I've had an alright one.
Good.
Yeah.
Doing alright, comrade?
Yeah.
Over there?
Yeah, pretty much that. Mosquitoes are a thing.
Ugh.
I was out in my little courtyard looking at my tomato plants, and, I mean, I wasn't out there 30 seconds. There's a fucking mosquito biting my ankle. It's like the nerve.
The cheek of it. The cheek of it.
Right? Yeah. Managed to swat it, but it was one of those situations, where you swat it and then you just got a handful of blood.
Ugh.
Yeah.
But at least it's your blood, you know that. Like, you're taking it back.
That's true. Well, I mean, I assume it's all my blood, but,
true.
maybe they, stopped somewhere else on the way.
That could have been putting it about.
Right?
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
I hate bitey bugs. They love me. I will get, set upon. It's, gnat season. And I know it before anyone else, because they go for me first, and they go for me in droves. And they go for me in really annoying places. They've been going after my fingers now.
Whoa.
Which makes me feel like I'm trapped in a well with rats, because that's the kind of thing rats in a well would do. Would go after your fingers and your toes. They've gone after me in weird places, like they always do. But, the knuckles, there's no blood worth getting there. You don't want knuckle blood.
I can't
It's
imagine
just
that's
an inefficient place to draw from. It's only capillary.
It leads me to believe that it's malice. It leads me to believe this is personal now. There's some vendetta going on. I get called paranoid a lot.
Really?
Because
I can't imagine.
I assume everyone and everything is out to get me. And I'm not, like, joking. Like, I genuinely have it. And I know it's got one of those weird things where I know it's not true, but my brain doesn't. So
Right.
I genuinely, like, believe in like, some, like, cosmic singling out, which, Conrad, you've seen what happens to me in my life. You spent enough time near me in Philly to know just, like, what gets dumped on me from a great height. So it's not like there isn't some reason to believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, I think what it is your brain knows it's not real, but your nervous system, the bit that just, gut reacts to fight or flight, is like, it just hasn't got the memo.
Yeah. So, I kind of doom spiral when a bad thing happens, because in my mind, it's always just part of a chain of events, which I'm trying to learn to break that habit. But when mosquitoes are going for your fingers, after a lifetime of them gravitating towards you, I don't think it's without merit to assume that they've organised. It's not right. It's not right. I'm ill, and the listeners haven't even sent me a fruit basket yet. We've been recording for what? Oh, well, no, I learned this last week. We've been recording for under 15 minutes, and I've not gotten a fruit basket yet.
How dare they?
How dare they?
How very dare they?
Right? Fucking hell. Sorry, I got garlic bread in the fridge. Cook that later.
You don't need to apologise for that.
No, I really don't. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for my garlic bread lifestyle.
Yeah. Be proud. Be unapologetic about your garlic bread in the fridge.
Oh dear. Well, it's nice to. I mean, it's very freeing to come out, isn't it? To in a public forum say, yes, I'm Stephanie Sterling, and I've got garlic bread in the fridge. This is me. This is who I am. Fucking hell.
Welcome to Podquisition, everyone.
Yes.
It's a video game show. Some of us played video games this week, probably.
Yeah.
Who played stuff they want to talk about?
Should we just do the big game that at least two of us bothered to play?
Yeah, let's do the one that I know me and Conrad want to talk about. Do you want to
Sure.
kick us off?
Yeah, so Pikmin's out, and it's another Pikmin game, which is to say that it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's the same old story, right? It's Olimar gets trapped on a planet, and you have to go rescue him. They have added this dog.
Yeah, let's talk about Ochi.
Yeah, Ochi, I think, is how you say it. That sounds right. Ochi is a incredibly useful character. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, he's a goofy little yellow dog with only 2 legs.
Only 2 legs?
Yeah,
only 2 legs.
He's just got back legs, and he kind of hops a bit like a kangaroo, but he's a dog.
Is this like... Did he lose them? Or is that like the species, it has 2 legs?
I think it's just built that way.
Oh.
It's just the species. It's dogs that only have 2 back legs, and they sort of hop around.
Right. Okay.
And he's an incredibly useful multifunction character. Like, they introduced cooperative elements in Pikmin 3, where you have a squad of eventually 3 characters that you switch between to solve puzzles. In 4, they've sort of winnowed that down a bit, making the dog necessary for a few of those puzzles, but it's not as much of a focus as it was in 3. I think to the betterment of the game.
I agree, yeah.
But the other thing that's so interesting about that is Ochi plays differently from your character.
Yes.
He can jump on his own, and so clearing small barriers with him is tremendously valuable. Just from a basic navigation point in opening up access to areas quickly. But having that one little element of verticality added into it to where you have some sense that you have more control over where you can go in the environment is nice.
And I think that they've balanced it well, because the big drawback to Ochi is Ochi cannot go through small gaps. So if you've got, like, a series of bars, you and the Pikmin can walk through, but you can't bring Ochi with you, and let's say you get through those bars and you see a very small ledge, now you're like, oh, I know what my objective is, I'm trying to find a way to bring those barriers down so I can get Ochi through, so I can jump up a minor ledge.
Right. But by contrast, he can attack.
Yes.
Ochi has attack capabilities that your character doesn't also. And that's interesting. His rush attack is incredibly powerful. You have an ability where if you do your little jump and you hold the jump button, it charges up an attack. It's a big rush, and then once you hit, any Pikmin that are on Ochi will fly off forward in the direction of your strike and onto an enemy if you've hit them. And the amount of damage that you can do with a full complement of Pikmin landing immediately after this hit, which itself does a not insignificant amount of damage when leveled up, is a really quick way to eliminate a lot of enemies in the game.
Yes.
And it also gets a stun that you can buy for it. That's the other thing. Equipment has been just blown up. They've added so much stuff there.
So you now start with, like, less ability than you do in other Pikmin games in certain capacities, and some of it is stuff you have to sort of earn and unlock through play, but it also gives you a lot of resources with which to prioritize picking up, above and beyond what you used to be able to do, new little character upgrades, and those are really nice.
The environment now has, because in the past you would find, like, building resources in an area, and they would be specifically for the purpose of building some construct somewhere in a level, a bridge or what have you. In Pikmin 4, you collect those resources and bring them back, and they can be used to be applied to any construct on any map, but as well as that, those resources are used to buy equipment from your little base hub. There's a scientist who makes available all sorts of upgrades and items, and that is a huge shift too. There are, like, defensive upgrades to account for all of the various elemental damage types that you can take, and there's health buffs for you and Ochi and that sort of stuff. But then there's just some tremendously useful accessories, like the item that lets you call all of your idle Pikmin back to you.
I was gonna mention, I was so happy to see that. Any Pikmin that aren't currently doing a job, you can just go, get the fuck over here, and that...
Yeah.
That because I know I don't need to go back to the base every single time my Pikmin deliver a thing and go grab those Pikmin. I can go grab them as a batch later, but in my head I'm like, nah, I can't be leaving Pikmin around doing nothing. I have to go back and get them, as much of a waste of time as that is, and that just destroyed that brain demon for me.
But it's interesting because I'm in now what I can't help but assume is the final area of the game. And I haven't used it yet. I bought the thing, and I only recently bought it. I kept forgetting it was there, because one of the other things you can do, and this just speaks to sort of the flexibility of options that Pikmin 4 is providing to players, I just trained Ochi to do it. Because Ochi gets his own progression path, and his own skills that can all get upgraded. And one of the abilities that you can teach Ochi is to go and retrieve your Pikmin from the home base. You go to the home base, he can retrieve Pikmin from anywhere on the map and just bring them back to you. He just hunts down all the idols wherever they are.
Yeah.
So I've just not bothered, and I keep forgetting that I can send Ochi to do that too, for that matter, because it's just such a compulsion to run back and get your Pikmin. And that's something that I'm gonna have to break myself of because of some of the but we'll get into that later. One of the other elements of this that's really fascinating with the resources is that all of the sort of single use items that you could get in prior Pikmin games, you can now just buy them with these resources.
Yes. Which I've never really done, but I can totally see once I have all of the, like, permanent upgrades done, I'm going to start doing that, and I appreciate that it's there. There's a couple of times I used it, actually. Like, early on, there was a pond that needed, like, 30 ice Pikmin, and I don't think I had 30 Pikmin full stop at that point, and, like, going and buying an ice bomb did solve that problem for me.
Yeah, a lot of the single use, well, actually, I haven't bought a lot of the equipment, despite how far into the game that I am. I haven't bought any of the elemental damage resistance upgrades
interesting.
at all. I haven't found them necessary. The combat in this is such that I can take out the enemies and frankly, the traps faster than it would be, a concern in most. It's just a planning thing generally. So I haven't bought any of those. But one of the things that I really like is, this is good and bad. The bombs that would be used to destroy concrete walls in prior games, the little explosive devices, you would have to find those by finding a dirt mound and having your Pikmin dig them up. And there would be enough to deal with the ones on, a level that you would need, but that would be it. Here, you can buy them and use them at any time. You can use them as offensive weapons, and that's really interesting. But it does mean that you're not going to find as many, or at least you're not necessarily going to find the one you need in the environment in a convenient location. A bit of a trade-off there, and I have bought a couple of bombs just to have on hand in case I find a wall and I don't want to, hunt around vainly looking for an explosive that may not be there. But that is useful. It had not occurred to me to use the ice bomb to compensate for a lack of Pikmin to freeze a surface, though. And I guess that's good times anyway to talk about some of the other Pikmin, because ice Pikmin are new, aren't they?
I honestly can't remember if we've had them before or not. I think they're new. I'm pretty sure they're new.
I think every other Pikmin in this is returning. You have your traditional red, yellow, and blue. The rock Pikmin are back.
Yeah, they are new. I thought they were, but the second you asked me that, I second guess myself.
Yeah, but I think they're the only other new Pikmin, because I think the purple Pikmin that...
purple Pikmin have definitely been around before.
Yeah, they've been around before.
Well, there's at least one other type we'll get to in a second, is the glowing ones.
Oh, yes, I always forget about that. Again, something else I almost never use. The poison and flying Pikmin they're all in here.
Yeah.
And they limit you in that you can have 3 Pikmin types with you at any one time, with one notable exception. And they're all there. They're all doing the same shit. But the ice Pikmin are really interesting. They have a few abilities for, because they are cold. They're necessary for attacking certain cold enemies. That's all well and good. But every body of water in the game has a freezing point.
Yes.
At which you throw enough of these ice Pikmin in, and a body of water then becomes a solid surface that you can traverse.
Yes.
And I love that, but more to the point of the ice Pikmin is their function in combat. They are the most useful combat creatures in this game. I fucking love them.
They are, with one notable exception, and this is touching on a mechanic that I'm sure we'll talk about in a second, but there is a high score chasing mode that you can do. And one thing I will note about the ice Pikmin is that if you defeat a creature with an ice Pikmin while they're frozen and they shatter, they don't leave a corpse, and you can't point score off bringing their corpse back. And it's the one place I've had to be careful about them is, generally speaking, I 100% agree with you, they are the most useful type of combat Pikmin. I constantly want them in my pockets, because being able to freeze an enemy for a period of time is so nice.
Oh, not merely that, but you can freeze them. You follow it up with a dash from Ochi. You throw all of your Pikmin onto the enemy, and if they're not shattered immediately by running through them, and you'll just wipe them out. There's almost nothing in the game that can stand up to it. Really cool ability. Did they have dungeons in? I can't remember. I don't.
So underground caves had been a thing in the past, but they definitely weren't this elaborate and intense. Because now most of the times when you find a cave in this, they are like multi-level themed dungeons with a particular like mechanic they're trying to teach you or a thematic element you're dealing with, and they feel very, very like. The caves are memorable. They have very distinct identities to them, tonally and gameplay-wise. Like, I could pick out a specific one and go, yeah, I remember what I was doing there.
For the most part, they have some sort of thematic element to the Pikmin that you can bring with you, and so that often provides an interesting challenge into what you can apply. They're also the way to get the rarer Pikmin types.
Yes.
So if you want more rock Pikmin, or you do eventually get an onion to make ice Pikmin. It's funny, you get them almost immediately in terms of having them for use in the game, but you don't get the onion to produce more until you're in the back 20%.
Yeah. Though, that being said, I have managed to never be short of ice Pikmin.
No, they're pretty prevalent in terms of having access to them in dungeons. They show up a lot, so it's well, and as they should, being like the new Pikmin. Like it just makes sense that you get more out of them. But I do think that's was an interesting design choice. Yeah, the dungeons are a lot more elaborate. They're fun little puzzles still. I enjoy them. The more the alternate mode gameplay of this, I like it, but I don't feel it was necessary.
I definitely don't think it was necessary, but I've really enjoyed the addition. So for anyone who's not played this, there's two new modes. They're Dondori Battle and Dondori something else, Dondori Challenge.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so Battle is, I think, the easier one to explain and the more distinctive a change. It is a 1v1 split screen who can Pikmin the best in a time limit against a CPU opponent. You are dropped into a little battle arena, and there are a bunch of things for your Pikmin to be collecting, breaking down walls, finding higher level things, getting seeds to get more Pikmin. And there is another person also trying to get a higher score than you by collecting better things. And outside of just the trying to be efficient about like picking your route, selecting what you're gonna try and collect, one of the things that I think is a nice touch is that if the opponent is trying to, let's say, like take a big apple that's gonna be worth like 10 points, if you send more Pikmin than they have sent, you start winning the tug of war and pulling it your direction towards your base. It encourages you not to overcommit to any one thing you're trying to collect for yourself, and keep an eye on having a pocket full of Pikmin ready to grab something that's a nice point score off someone else. I've really enjoyed those. I've been replaying them between missions, trying to get platinum scores on all of those. I really dig them. The other one, Dondori Challenge, is here is a map full of a set number of treasures to collect, and you have like 5 minutes. Try and get as high a score as you can, and ideally for like the platinum rank, collect every single piece of treasure that exists within this environment before the time runs out. And
every treasure and creature.
Yes, every treasure and creature, and again, without using ice Pikmin, because that'll break them and you won't get the points for some of the creatures. But those, I think, are where the ice Pikmin, I really started to click with some of the value they had, in that ice Pikmin become really invaluable for creating shortcuts throughout levels, and creating ways for you to not have to carry an object the long way around.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and generally a lot of those challenge missions is not only like what's the quickest, efficient, and most efficient route to grab more Pikmin, grab treasures, but also what order do I need to be opening up shortcuts back to where I've got to drop them off to minimize time wasting.
Well, and another element that enters into this is in another new feature. I think this is a new feature. Is you can relocate the base.
Yes,
in many levels.
Yes. Definitely in all the like big overworld levels, but also in a lot of these.
In a lot of the dungeons, yeah. And so that can be, all right, well, do I need to have the base on this side of the map, and how does that affect my shortcuts? I was just playing last night before bed a challenge level. I don't know if you've had this one yet, where you have 2 bodies of water in separated rooms, with 15 ice Pikmin required.
I literally, like 20 minutes before we recorded today, I did this exact one, yeah.
I am so close to platinuming that one. I am so close. But it's that watermelon and the 2 enemies next to it. I just can't quite get to them in time.
I've yet to... I got a gold on my first attempt, and I can see what I need to be doing differently. Because, like, I think that's a really fun one, because you get access to so many purple Pikmin in it, that it's a case of, like, all of these big items are really easy to carry. I just need to be prioritizing everything around that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tricky, too, because you also, like, you have to convert Pikmin that you're going to need to do other things in that process. So when do you start collecting all of this shit with your big Pikmin?
At what point do you call 15 of those ice Pikmin out of the water because you think, okay, this room we're done with, that's 15 extra Pikmin for me to be sending other places. And
but could you be using those 15 Pikmin to solve something else in the room in a shorter period of time and then toss them back in? Like, that all plays a role, and
and honestly, I've really loved the puzzle of like platinum hunting on those challenge missions, because they all feel like completable, but you've really got to try for it.
Yep.
And there is just enough time, and I've really dug that challenge.
Which I guess should lead us to the other big new mode in this, which is night explorations. For the first time, the game is going into night. Traditionally in Pikmin games, everything follows a day-night cycle, but you stop when night comes because the monsters are too aggressive to deal with, is the idea. So now you're doing night expeditions, and these take the form of another just sort of alternate mode, as opposed to actually exploring the environments at night. You're put in the levels, but now there are bases that you have to defend from oncoming hordes of enemies. There's a time limit on the stage, and if you exceed the time limit, that's one way to victory. The other way to victory is to eliminate all of the enemies on the map, which is possible in most of these expeditions, it seems. But you can't take your regular Pikmin. They give you the other new type of Pikmin, which are glow Pikmin, which are ghosts?
I think so?
Question mark?
Yeah, they cannot die, and they can only be out at night. I think they're ghosts. But they're ghosts that you can carry in the form of a seed, so they're somewhat tangible.
Right, and that's one of the rewards for doing this mode, is that you get 20% of your collected Pikmins in glow seeds for use in other dungeons in the game. So these seeds can be used to expand your rank of Pikmins to get yourself a little bit more oomph if you are in a dungeon. I've never done it.
I can tell you exactly the one dungeon I did it in, and you'll know this one. It's the one that's you're being hunted by Nemesis.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because in that one, the game was giving me lots and lots of signals to be like, no, you can't deal with this, come back later, run, get to the next floor. And I said, no, fuck you, I'm going to 100% this dungeon on the first try and collect all the treasure, despite the threat that I can't actually deal with. and I lost a fair amount of Pikmin in the
no.
process. But the glow seed Pikmin were really useful when I was running low on the Pikmin I was supposed to be using, because I was trying to collect every piece of treasure against an unkillable foe I could not do anything about.
As well, that leads into another feature that's been added that I didn't think I would use, but wound up using a lot out of convenience, and that's the rewind time mechanic.
Yes.
That allows you to go back a period of time as determined by the game. It can vary from like 5 minutes to like 30 seconds, but
I think the easy way to describe it is back to what would be your last autosave, or if you're in a dungeon, back to the start of the floor.
Right, but it doesn't really give you any indication. Well, even in the dungeons, you could go back a minute or 2 minutes. It's not restricted to that, but it's
not precise, but like that's the best ballpark of like the vibe of when you can rewind to.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it being a vibe. Like, if I'm gonna have to, it's never more than a few minutes that I'm losing, and I just did it, so it's not like I can't remember what I did to get back there. But like, and I didn't use it in that dungeon with the steamroller, but I have used it in many other dungeons where I will, have a small wipeout where I lose, 5, 6 Pikmin, and I'm just like, fuck that, I'm not losing my Pikmins, and you rewind it, and that's very convenient. That, I think, is the main takeaway I have from Pikmin 4, generally speaking, is that it is all about quality of life improvements throughout this. Pikmin 3 had that huge quality of life improvement with the Go Here command, which returns and is still just such a great feature, especially on a map where your arrow indicator is showing you the direction that the camera is facing, not the direction the character is facing. I see why you would do that, but it drives me nuts. My head can't handle that spatial relationship, and I'm constantly losing track of where I'm supposed to be going. So having that click on the map and they go to the place that I want them to go without my needing to figure out what direction that actually is just so nice. But and that's not to say that like all of these quality of life enhancements are great. I think the level design isn't as tight in Pikmin 4, and that a lot of that feels like it's owing to all of the options it's provided for navigation, that they know they feel like they need to use those rather than creating stages that satisfyingly loop back on themselves in the way that prior Pikmin games have.
Yeah, and we were talking about this the other day, and I think you put it well when you said, as convenient as moving the bases around the levels is, it feels like it exists because of the change to how these levels are structured. Like, it feels like it is a band-aid for the fact that, like, the levels are not what they used to be in some ways.
I mean, I feel like they inform each other. I think that in part the level design, perspective shifts when you're designing these, because you don't have to think about bringing everyone back to a central point. That there are going to be multiple points that they can go to. So I don't know if it's, papering over poor level design or its availability is making it easier to do poor level design. And it's not even fair to say that it's poor.
Yeah, poor level design isn't the right way to put it, but I level design that lacks a certain element that used to be a hallmark of how Pikmin levels were designed.
Yes.
And that is going to be a personal preference whether how you feel about that. And I don't always dislike it.
Nope.
But it's definitely different.
I do think it is, just generally speaking, broadly more accessible to players.
Agreed.
The content density and variety is very impressive.
Yeah.
I'm pleased that there's enough to do. If I'm getting tired of an exploration, there are lots of options for me to keep playing and having fun with that.
Yeah.
And I'm into all of that. I've heard people talk about, they're desperate to try and get people to finally like Pikmin. I don't think this is going to do that.
No, I think this is the best chance that a lot of people are going to have to like Pikmin. But I think if you if you actively really disliked it before, there's a lot of things that aren't going to win you over here. Like it depends what your problems with past Pikmins are. Like, to my understanding, this doesn't have the thing that some past Pikmin games had, where if you don't complete the game within a set number of days, you get a bad ending.
Yes.
And if for example that is your problem with past Pikmins, this is this is an accessible entry point. There are certain changes like that that will bring some people over to oh, I like Pikmin now. I don't think it's gonna cause a huge shift in the audience size for the series.
And I think that I don't think the reason people weren't playing Pikmin was that it was inaccessible in a mechanical sense. I think Pikmin never caught on in the way that it seems Nintendo wants it to as a franchise, because it's too fucking weird.
Yeah.
And you know how I know that that's the problem with Pikmin as a series? Because this is the most chibi-robo a Pikmin game has ever fucking been.
Oh, that is the perfect way to describe it.
That has been the
You hit the nail on the
comparison
head.
that people keep giving me as I stream this. Everybody who comes in and looks at it at first, as I've been playing on stream, says, this is a lot like Chibi Robo, isn't it? And
I've been streaming
you're not
it.
wrong.
No one has made that comparison, but they are so correct to make it.
Yeah. And part of that too is it is definitely fleshed out the lore of Pikmin 4 in a way that it never has before, and has given us a little, and I'm saying this way to avoid spoilers of any sort, but you learn more about the planet that all of these games have been set on, which it's not going to surprise anybody that it is Earth, but you learn more about the Earth that you did not have a clear conception of in this game, that sort of changes the whole perspective, and I dare say could allow Chibi Robo to exist in the Pikmin universe. I'm just throwing that out there. If they wanted to do a crossover Pikmin Chibi Robo, I am down for that shit.
I mean, they feel at home with each other.
Right? Yeah. So, but yeah, but that's it. I think the game's just too fucking weird. People look at it and they're like, what is this? And there isn't a great way to communicate in 15 seconds what this game is. The elevator pitch is hard, and it is very brightly colored and distracting and strange. And I think that's been the barrier to entry. It's not whether or not the game was good or well designed or was thinking about the player. Those things are all nice, and it's certainly improved in that respect, and this is by far the most accessible. But I can't help but feel that it's not an issue of there wasn't an audience of people who were held back by Pikmin being too hard to play. I just think it's too strange.
I don't disagree, but yeah.
But thank God they keep sticking with it, because I love these games, and I want to keep playing them.
Like, for any changes that were made that I don't personally vibe with, it doesn't change the fact that, I have spent all of my free gaming time this week basically playing this game, and it has been exactly as delightful as I expect a Pikmin game to be.
Yep.
I am having the time I expected to have, and that's great. It's just been very wholesome, and it's just been... Yeah, actually, side note, something that's really nice that I really appreciate. I really like that if you're stuck trying to find one thing in a level because you're trying to 100% it, that your dog can sniff out and bring you to roughly where it is.
Well, and if you are ever in need of specialty Pikmin, he can hunt down what dungeons have those in them, and that's a huge convenience too. Yeah, the dog's just great.
The dog is just great.
I hate to say this, but Peter Molyneux was right. They made me care about that fucking dog. They Peter Molyneux'd me.
How dare they do that? That is unacceptable.
How dare.
No one should ever be Molyneux'd.
No. But yeah. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. It's a good game. Yeah. It's a good game. It plays pretty well with the version of Yuzu that I'm using. Has just, I feel like I feel like I should be offering, some like when a port comes out. Well,
are you going to be our emulator reporter?
Oh God.
How's the Yuzu port?
The Yuzu port it's pretty good. I'm on 1502. It has a weird problem playing like the tutorial videos that come up in when you're looking at menus, and that translates to the title screen and so forth. At some point in running it, it seems to break down. Dark levels. That was the big problem. Something about the lighting effects with the headlamp in those dark levels does not play well. So sometimes you can't see shit. Sometimes it's just blinding. But apart from those issues, which, your mileage may vary on a different emulator or on a later update, but apart from that, runs pretty well. Some frame drop periods, it'll drag on my system down to 2 frames a second occasionally. But on the whole, no complaints. It works well enough that it's quite playable in emulation. So nice. Good times. Yeah. Steph, you've been so quiet.
You all said Peter Molyneux, and now all I can think about is him with an OnlyFans.
Oh no!
It's going to be the most compelling penis you've ever seen. Hello, you all right?
I'm curious to know about all of the features that he'd be promising from his penis.
Yeah, you're really going to care about this, D, as well. It's going to make you cry. It has done many times. Mostly playing Exoprimal still. Very, very compelled by it. I'm like a level 102, 103 now. The season pass thing that came with the deluxe edition I got, done that. I have got an MVP with every character except my favourite one, Nimbus, and the Sniper, because Sniper. Basically, I've just played a shitload of it. It's really good. Like, there's a reason I enjoyed doing the Jimquisition on it so much, because I like playing it, I like thinking about it. It's just a big, dumb dinosaur game, and I'm fucking hooked.
I started playing it this week after your reassurance that it is not as much of a terrible microtransaction fest as it is dressed up to be.
Yeah.
And you are right, it is wonderful. And I wish that this game had not advertised its 3 or 4 different monetization strategy battle passes every time it was shown off, because much as you sort of made the argument in the Jimquisition this week, I didn't play this game that I am now really loving because they made it look like a thing that I don't play.
Yeah, they absolutely did it a disservice. Like I said in the video, in one sentence I can do a better job. It's Earth Defense Force by way of Overwatch with dinosaurs. That, and I know that sold it for some people. I've had people say, yeah, that first sentence sold me on the game. Pay me, Capcom, or anyone. I'll sell your fucking game, as long as it's good. I'll sell your fucking game for you.
Does that include the ones who reached out to me to get you to do a sponsored post the other week?
By all accounts, probably not, from what I've heard.
I'll say this, without getting specific, a certain developer who is in the midst of having some stories about, poor treatment of workers, reached out to me, not to offer me sponsored work, but to offer Steph sponsored work through me, despite the fact that there are some news stories around them that would make them definitely not a thing Steph would want to be associated with in that moment.
Yeah, I usually, just flat ignore requests for sponsorship, but that one made a hell of an impact. Yeah, interesting. I'm half tempted to get back to them and be like, sure, do you want to go on my live stream? And then just see what happens.
I mean, there is a bit of me that's really tempted to be like, what could you get away with?
Right? What could I do? Yeah, so Exoprimal, fantastic. Even though it's not microtransaction laden, I am worried that when they do another, battle pass, I'm gonna get it. I'm worried that's gonna happen because I'm that into it. And you know what?
I mean, that's not inherently a problem. If you're enjoying the game and it's not pressuring you to buy it and you're enjoying it and would like to pay for more things,
I mean,
it's not inherently bad.
I'm not fully against expansions. I'm not fully against DLC. I don't like battle passes. I think they're shitty. But at the same, God, I am a consumer whore. It's part of the reason I have a go at these business practices so much, because I'm susceptible to them. But, I am just eager to see what comes next. They've got the, what's it called? The Savage Gauntlet mode coming in August. The thing they really hyped up in-game before telling me it wasn't in the game.
Yeah.
But until then, the mileage I've gotten out of Dino Survival, which is essentially the same thing over and over again, to do it over 100 times and still be, like, up for more. And like I said in the video, in fairness, even though it plays that whole trope of an unfinished early triple access game quite straight, there is some subversion. I am over 100 matches in, and it did something new today. There was a new type of dinosaur with a new type of objective that I hadn't seen yet. So it does have these little twists that come in. Even though I gave it an 8 in review, my own personal experience with it is the kind of thing I'd give a 9 and 10 to. It's just, there's a lot of very crucial criticisms. But I'm playing this to the point where, when it does come up Jimquisition award time, so long as there are no microtransaction shit added in, it's in the running. Even though it normally goes to all the 9s and 10s in there. I just fucking love it. I really, really like it. I'm going to keep my eye on it, because I've not been this into an online game in such a long time.
Really happy to hear that. Yay. I played a really fucking stupid thing this week I want to talk about.
Oh, please.
So here is the title of the game, and give me a second because it's pretty long. Yeah, you want those games, right? So here you go. Now, let's see you clear them.
That's the title.
That's the title of the game.
That's the title.
Ah.
Yeah, you want those games, right? So here you go. Now let's see you clear them.
Okay.
So, I'm not going to say this game is good, but I am weirdly enjoying it. You know all of those, mobile games that just do not exist beyond being the fake versions of the games in adverts? For, pull the pin out to make the knight get to the treasure and not have the lava fall on him.
Oh god, some of those are so dark as well. They're fucked up.
Right. So you got shit like that. You've got shit like the knight who's in a little room and he's got a number above his head, and you've got to bring him to a room that's got an enemy that's lower than his number, and it adds the number up, and you can progressively go to stronger things, but because your number's increasing. You seen that one? Mm-hmm. Or the 3D person running sort of side to side on a little path, collecting whatever it is to progress through. Someone took all of those ads that don't actually exist as games and made them into games and put them as a collection.
That is sort of clever, because we've all seen them. If you've got social media, especially Facebook, you've seen them.
Yeah, these are 100%, like, even if I'm describing them poorly, you will look at the 5 games in this and go, oh no, I've seen that one on TikTok behind an Am I the Arsehole post or whatever. Like, that is exactly where they show up. But, the thing is, it's £8. It's got 5 games in there, and each of them's got, like, as far as I can tell, I've so far been able to see 100 levels for each. Maybe there's more, who knows. I could only see up to 50 when I had the first page. They're genuinely pretty alright. So, like, the pulling the pins one, I'll use as an example. There is a definitive progression of introducing a lot of new mechanics over time, and then requiring you to factor those into how the core gameplay works, and fundamentally it's just pick the order to pull these pins out. But they've added and introduced a lot of different elements and mechanics that do not exist in the one YouTube pre-roll trailer that you see, to make an actual functional game out of it. And maybe that's things like, there are big trolls, and if you get a big troll and a little goblin near each other, the troll will go over to where the goblin is and beat them up, and that will sort of set their new final position. So if you're trying to, like, drop something on their head, maybe you got to use that to get them into position. And I'm, like, 70 levels deep into this, like, pull the pins one, and really hoping that there's more than the 100 I currently know about, because I am really enjoying this stupid, like, they're just little, like, 30 seconds to a minute little puzzles. It is the stuff that you find in mobile games, but I've paid £8 rather than have to constantly have, oh no, you can't play anymore today, here's a advert thrown at you.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't hate little mobile game puzzle mechanics. I don't like playing them, because so often on mobile they come part and parcel with being infuriatingly buried in adverts, with no way to just, I'm enjoying this, I just want to give you £1 for it and be done. And that's fundamentally what this is it's, none of the games in this are amazing. They are all fundamentally kind of tied to their roots as, we made a game out of that one mechanic you saw in a mobile game ad, and therefore we kind of have to be tethered to some design choices that aren't going to be perfect, because these things were never meant to be actual games. But I'm genuinely kind of enjoying them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm honestly pretty surprised that they didn't just use this as an opportunity to get in, do the gag, get their money, and get out.
Yeah.
This is made by the people who made the Katamari remakes, the HD Katamari remakes, and they've put effort into it. If you're someone who just likes the idea of do little puzzle challenges and it's a bit silly because it's like that thing from the adverts, I honestly feel like I've made a decent purchase with this. Like, I'm not going to tell anyone it's good or that everyone should go buy it, but if you're listening to me talk about it, you'll know whether this is a thing that will appeal to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to check this one out. That is such a clever idea. I do agree with the user review I'm seeing on Steam. Where's the violent ones? Like, you're not the father with you yeeting the baby. Because I remember that one. Yeah. That one was gold.
They've definitely played it a little on the safe side, but I'm enjoying it. It is a clever idea, and they have put the effort in to make it not just a little gimmick. I mean, okay, it's a little gimmick. I will say as well, the thing that has, like, gotten me, I really hate mobile games having, like, star ratings for completing puzzles, because so often it is intrinsically tied into the how much energy do you have per day to do the things? Do you want to really waste time redoing that energy redoing that level when you could go to the next one? With that taken away, these puzzles are genuinely, like, they're usually time limit based as to whether you get 3 stars on them. The time you have available is, like, it's really narrow, the timing for 3 stars, and I feel good when I see my little 3-star ranking. I like this stupid mobile collection. It's pretty good. Yeah. What about you both? Either of you played anything else this week?
No.
I'll briefly talk about it. I don't know if you remember Spirit Hunters, that Vampire Survivor style game that I played on a live stream and slagged off, and the developer went in to the chat.
Oh no.
But that's out of early access now, and it's on Switch, and I got it. And it's better. It's still got the major issue I had where the weapons aren't quite that satisfying because so many of them are of the thing will appear at random rather than something that like heads towards the closest enemy or something you can direct. There's some, but a lot of it is, here are some spears shooting out of the ground, here are some vines coming out, here's a hex thing, like a circle of damage that will come out. And some of them are very similar, but it is enjoyable enough. It doesn't nail the gratification that some of the games do. It doesn't last very long. You never really feel like you get into the groove until it's almost over each run. There's something to it. My experience is so much more positive than when it was in early access. There was another Survivor-style game that was on Switch, Army of Ruin. And, since I worked on Vampire Survivors, I make it my business to check out most of the ones I come across. So I checked out Army of Ruin. That was also on the Switch. That one is 3D models, very jaggedy ones. It looks... I don't know if it's using pre-made assets. It's got the style of one that does. And the edges on all the models, especially the treasure chests, when they you see the close-up of them opening, the edges of all the models are so jaggedy, and it gives everything the appearance of looking kind of, not cheap, more just the digital equivalent of decrepit. Still getting to grips with that one. I've only done a couple runs. The weapons are better than in Spirit Hunters in terms of variety and the ones you can sort of direct, that you have a little bit of control over what you're doing with them or where your positioning is relative to it and the enemies. But it's very slow paced, and each run is about 10 minutes, which again, like Spirit Hunters, I understand they want to make these games a little more snappy, but it doesn't feel long enough for a proper run. They've kind of mitigated that by not having the weapons level up very much. I think each weapon levels up 5 times and then you're done. Although I have just unlocked evolutions for them, so I'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, that's something Spirit Hunters does pretty well as well. There's like a big sprawling skill tree, and you can unlock evolved versions of the weapons, and some of those can be pretty game-changing. Like the random spears can become a cage, like a circle of spears that jut up around you, which means you finally can sort of position them. Or the bone projectiles that shoot above and below you, you can get an evolution that splinters them, and then you can level the evolution versions up. The fireball, the orbital that rotates around you, is pretty good because you can evolve that and it turns into a little dragon that shoots fireballs out. And if you level up the fireballs enough to where the cooldown is down, you're just constantly sending a big spiraling circle around you. So those are good. But yeah, those are they're the only 2 things I played in between Exoprimal. I've not seen another one of these games yet that has touched Vampire Survivors outside of Bone Razor Minions, which is still just one of the fucking best games I've played this year. And that's it. Yeah. That's about all I did this week.
The only other thing I played, and I can briefly mention, is I finally beat the final ending on the Binding of Isaac Repentance. I've been sort of chipping away at that recently, trying to get through some of the stuff I hadn't seen, and doing so, I realised that there is still so much of this game I haven't seen or unlocked. Mild spoilers, I guess. I unlocked a whole second character select screen for corrupted characters, where I got a corrupted version of Azazel, who doesn't have wings, they've been, physically ripped off, and the laser is considerably, like, shittier but longer range, and you do, like, a sneeze when you start charging the laser, and that marks enemies that are near enough to you with a brimstone symbol that makes your laser then do considerably more damage to brimstoned targets. So you're trying to get people in close to mark them with your sneeze to then damage them with the laser after that. And, like, there's a whole character select screen of those that I do not have. There is so much video game in The Binding of Isaac, my brain boggles at it. But I've beaten, in theory, the final boss of The Binding of Isaac now, so I can put that little brain gremlin away for a little bit and play some other things.
Very nice. I was actually thinking about Binding of Isaac today. I was like, maybe I'll pick that back up. But ever since that last big expansion, I found some of the balancing changes like turned it into a much more annoying game for me. So I haven't sort of touched it in quite some time.
Same.
Yeah,
it's just too much content for me at this point.
I felt that way for a while, and I don't know what changed, but I came back to it like maybe a month ago, and it has been pretty consistently my... If I'm not playing through something else that I'm trying to get through, like, it's been my fallback for the last month, and I've gotten back into it, but it takes some adjusting to the different balance, for sure. So, with that out the way, should we do a couple of bits of newsy stuff?
Yeah,
I'll allow it.
Yeah. I've got a bit of news here that I would normally, jump all excitedly into, but I kind of want to talk instead about the fact that this piece of news exists. I'm just going to get this out of the way. So, without saying which, a movie studio has done a branded tie-in to make a controller that smells like a food. Like a video game controller that smells like a food.
Why?
Because there is a food that is particularly relevant to this movie that's coming out.
There is a type of food that is identified with the intellectual property, and therefore...
Yeah, and the reason why I'm not jumping into this is, on stream the other day, I saw this story and was like, this is a great, hilarious story, and I started reading it, and halfway through the sentence, I went, I have been fooled into talking about a piece of struck work here, but, from a studio that's under the writer's strike right now.
And actor's strike now.
Yeah,
everybody's getting in.
Yes. Yeah, so, it's not going to be that hard for you to go find out what they made a controller smell like for what film if you want to go find that out, but, don't bother. I think you're going to see a lot of shit like this in the coming weeks of video game tie-ins for upcoming movies, because movie people are respecting the strike action going on right now and not talking about upcoming films from studios they're being striked against. You're going to see a lot of, here's a news story of something wacky to do with a movie that is video game related in the hopes that video game people will talk about it and undermine the strike.
And people who are involved in the film influencer market have been taking a ton of shit from people who, when they express the idea that they are going to continue doing coverage of these films. I'm happy. I'm thrilled by this. Nobody likes a scab. Yeah. And that goes for the marketing too, That's solidarity means not doing that work and not thinking of yourselves exclusively. And so I have a lot of respect for film influencers who aren't taking on any new contracts or work for the film industry. And I think we need to be calling out games coverage of these things for what it is, which is that they're trying to do an end run around their strike to market their products.
Yes, if they can't get film influencers to talk about their upcoming film, they want video game people to talk about their upcoming film to get around the fact that those people are taking a principled, attempt to strike and get better, pay and working conditions.
I mean, let's face it, they've got plenty of reason to believe that they can get that from video game media.
Yeah.
You expect solidarity, you expect principle from that sector. you're winding yourself up to be disappointed.
Though, to be fair,
Yeah.
I will say, I think they probably expected the film influencer community to be a pretty easy sell, and that's turning out to not be so much the case. So
Yeah.
that gives me
Yeah.
hope. But it is like just sort of taking the next rung down the ladder,
Yeah.
isn't it? All right, well, who is even more venal and self-interested?
Did any
Exactly.
major game blog pick up on that story with Bethesda?
No, I don't think they have yet, because
No.
of course they fucking haven't.
They've reported on stories of mistreatment with a lot less to go on than the stack of evidence
And I mean,
that was
they
offered.
sure will talk about a controller that smells like food that is promoting
Yeah.
a movie from a struck studio.
Like,
They'll sure do that, but they won't.
Obviously, post Gamergate, you never want to like go too far into game journalism corrupt, blah blah blah. But you know, after seeing them like suck up to Ubisoft, still like that was what truly went from me sort of not caring much for games media and being like disgusted by a lot of it. And for them to just like post all those Starfield stories the week it came out that ZeniMax and Bethesda had held that trans woman's healthcare hostage, and none of them have touched it. As far as I can tell, two sites did it. One I can't remember the name of, and thegamer.com is the only one that not only touched the story, but followed up on it and had more. Good on them.
The Gamer, genuinely like a really good site. They have reported on stuff that like, when I dug up some stuff around Life is Strange True Colors not having subtitles for licensed music, including when characters were singing licensed songs, and like the problems with that, the Gamer was the only site that picked that up, and they're on it. They do good coverage.
I mean, I think there's probably still a measure of fear also. Like these, which just doesn't make it right. It doesn't excuse it, but I do firmly believe that a lot of these people are just fucking scared of the audience, and understandably so, because the audience.
I mean, there is some of that. There is some of that, but there's a couple of blogs that like have historically had no problem. Going up against it.
I will say this: there are certain big places that haven't covered it, and there are certain smaller places that are largely staffed by underpaid people or enthusiast people who do not have access to a legal team. That are probably waiting for a big name to cover it so that they go, cool, we're legally safe. And without that, they don't have a legal person to go, is how I plan to cover this gonna be okay legally?
Yeah, well, let's be honest. I'm not having a crack at the little sites.
Well, no.
I'm having a crack at the sites where, in an ideal world, you'd expect better.
Yeah.
Even though it's been proven that you're barking up the wrong tree if you do.
Yeah.
I am disgusted by so much of games media, especially the bigger straights of it. I have been angry at so much of it since they all went back to sucking up to Ubisoft. But I was genuinely, somehow, despite their inaction rarely shocking me these days, I was actually really genuinely surprised that The Gamer, one other small website, and me were the only ones who touched that story. And it speaks, of course, to mainstream news' issue, where unless it's something they can properly sensationalize, a trans person going through some bullshit is not an interesting story to them. You know, trans people's stories of mistreatment gets ignored so much. I'm not going to get too deep into the dark, miserable stuff, but we are used to seeing this.
Yeah.
And for some of these game sites that otherwise talk a big game about being progressive, seeing it here has been dismal. It has been dismal. And I am shocked. I hoped at least, like, I know I'm nowhere near as influential as I used to be, but I hoped me doing a video on it would have put enough onus on them to think maybe we should mention this. And the fact they've just carried on like it was nothing and will just keep providing breathless coverage of Starfield is sad.
this is the same games media landscape that paid zero attention as Swery went on weird transphobic tirades and just completely ignored that was happening. You know, it is
for
what
God's
it
sake,
is.
that guy was harassing you on Twitter, and
he sure didn't like that I had criticisms.
Yeah, it's just sad, and
yeah.
Honestly, there's quite a few people out there that have talked a big game in the past that ought to be maybe a little ashamed of themselves. But yeah,
well,
there you go.
I've got a nice upbeat story to sort of lift us up a little bit from here.
Okay.
Are either of you aware of the newest addition to World of Warcraft, GLORBO?
GLORBO. I love the name.
Conrad, are you aware of GLORBO?
I've heard of GLORBO. Yeah.
Okay. I'll introduce Steph.
Is it related to Gorzak? He's a big hit.
So I'm going to read to you a story that got published on The Portal about GLORBO's introduction to World of Warcraft. Let me know when this gets you.
Okay.
World of Warcraft players excited for GLORBO's introduction. World of Warcraft players are thrilled about the introduction of GLORBO and eagerly await its impact on the game. World of Warcraft players have been buzzing with excitement ever since the announcement of GLORBO's introduction. The highly anticipated new feature has sparked a wave of positive sentiment amongst players who are eagerly awaiting its impact on the game. Key takeaways. Players express excitement for GLORBO's arrival and its potential impact on the game. Some players have reservations about the mandatory item Click-Clack and its effect on casual players. Rumours of Stormsong Valley becoming the new location for Half Hill Market and Farming Sim minigame generate enthusiasm. Appreciation for previous game changes, such as the inclusion of Klaxi as a playable race. Reddit user Kafer Kegrin expresses their excitement, stating, "Honestly, this new feature makes me so happy. I really just want some major bot-operated news websites to publish an article about this."
Look, Smithers, GLORBO is coming.
So, if you hadn't worked this out yet, a Reddit user put up a very excitable post about the addition of GLORBO to World of Warcraft, including the line, "I really hope some major bot-operated news website publishes an article about this." GLORBO does not exist.
This is beautiful.
The mandatory click-clack item does not exist, nor does its effect on casual players, or the new Farming Sim minigame, or the inclusion of the Klaxi as a playable race. That does not stop the fact that this article is going to go on for quite some time talking about GLORBO. Reddit user Tensam expresses concern about GLORBO being overpowered and accuses Blizzard of being inconsiderate toward non-GLORBO players. This sentiment is countered by players like Wooms, who appreciate GLORBO's backstory and the impact it had on the game's lore. This post got turned into a news article on at least 2 gaming sites that farmed it without paying any attention to what they were farming, that turned every single comment on it that was coming up with nonsense lore into very sincere descriptions of upcoming patch changes. And
it's safe to assume that no human touched this, right?
I mean, look, the sentence structure is surprisingly good for something a human did not touch.
Yeah, but ChatGPT can do that.
Yeah, I have to assume that no human touched this or saw this, it just happened.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's well worth a read, the original Reddit post, because people really had fun with it. You get such wonderful quotes in the news story as making Click-Clack a mandatory item is such a huge punch in the gut for casual players. I don't have time to farm Zoop for that.
Wow.
The world building is impressive. It really goes on for a while, so there you go. There's a fun little story about the downfall of games media starting to poke its head in with AI generated work.
Brilliant.
But I mean, look, at this point, fuck Activision Blizzard. I would love, this is one of those stories where I hope that someone on the dev team puts GLORBO in the game after this.
If the world's going to end, you might as well have a good time, and my hat's off to these Reddit people. That's,
Yeah, I can't get over the fact that the bot took the bit where it's like, I really hope an AI-generated news bot steals this story.
I mean, it really...
It's the cherry on top.
What it does a great job of is something I talked about in my video on AI. Is the lack of context.
Yes.
Like, you can get these things to generate words that string along and make sense. You can get them to make pictures that look like the thing they're meant to look like, so long as you don't look at the hands. But you cannot teach a bot context. This is not AI.
Yeah.
It's not actually artificial intelligence. It's not intelligence. It's algorithm. It's collecting data and repurposing it. It's an asset flip.
Yeah.
In a way.
What AI text bots are capable of doing is making something that sounds like it makes sense within the data set it's given. So, with that news story, you give it that Reddit post, it assumes everything in there is true, and it writes something that sounds like it makes sense given the information about GLORBO that it's just been fed.
Yeah.
That's all it does. It's, can I write new sentences that sound like your sentences about GLORBO? We got a couple of other very quick stories to chip through. There was a story earlier this week that, like, I've seen a lot of people share the original story, not a lot of people share the follow-up to it, because, you know, that's how things are. Corrections and additional context are a lot harder to spread. The original story that was doing the rounds was Ubisoft is deleting accounts of people who haven't logged into their Ubisoft account on PC for X amount of time.
Theft. Let's call it what it is. They're stealing.
Well, are they? We'll get to that in a second. So, people were being sent an email informing them that, you know, their account had been suspended due to inactivity and would be deleted within 30 days unless they click a button that says cancel account closure. And understandably, a lot of people pitched this as, my account in which I've purchased games is going to be deleted if I don't use it frequently enough, and Ubisoft's going to steal games away from me that I paid for. That isn't actually what the story is, and I'm bringing it up just to, you know, clarify it. The people who are getting those emails are people who have never purchased a game on their Ubisoft account. They are people whose account is not only inactive, but has never purchased a game. Are being told, hey, you've not used your account in, like, a couple of years, and you've never bought anything with it. Are you sure you still want it?
Oh, fair enough.
Which, I want to have a go at Ubisoft at the best of times. Like, I love a good excuse to have a go at Ubisoft. I do think it is important, because I've seen so many people who do still think the story is Ubisoft is deleting accounts that contain people's paid-for games.
Well, their own Twitter account, like their support Twitter account, didn't fucking add that context.
Yeah, which...
It looked like, according to them on social media, that they confirmed it.
They confirmed they were deleting accounts, and I'm guessing whoever was doing the social media did not know the specifics of which accounts were being deleted and why and what they needed to be combating. But yeah, updates to, various news sites that cover the story. They now say, we're deleting accounts that have never bought anything and have been sat around because we're required to by GDPR. But, you know, we're looking at, has the account been used since its creation? You know, accounts that have purchased games are not eligible for deletion. The period of inactivity, is there an active subscription tied to the account, in which case it's not going to be deleted? Basically, as long as you have ever bought anything or ever spent money or had the account you've used it in the last 4 years, you shouldn't get this email saying, hey, you've got 30 days to not get deleted.
Okay.
So, shitty messaging on their part. And, you know, the fact that this was so believable to so many people, I think says a lot to how we've been trying to think about digital goods, in that it really did not seem surprising, the idea that they might just delete people's accounts, games and all. So yeah, that's it. We done it.
Good.
Right.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go off and continue being ill. According to my Windows taskbar, it says heavy rain soon.
Oh boy.
So a sequel to the Quantic Dream Classic. That's a bit of news I've brought to close us off. Oh no, if it's raining, I'm going to be made up with that. I love rain. I tell you what, I also love Laura Kate Dale. And I love that you do work and things, and I think the audience would love to hear about it before we go.
Oh, well, you can find all the stuff I do at Laura K Buzz pretty much everywhere. Laura K Buzz on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, all the places that you find media. Patreon's the one that pays the bills. As little as $1 a month really helps. That is the main source of income I have. That is the reason I can do the things I do. This week's episode of Accessibility, that's going to be up on YouTube on Friday, is about the upcoming game Stray Gods, and talking about some of its accessibility stuff it's doing, but also talking about the fact that they're being open and upfront ahead of release about some of the places they are failing to hit their targets on accessibility, and why that's really important, and we really need to move towards seeing more developers do that. That's going to be up on Friday. And sometime Friday or Saturday, there will be an interview with me about accessibility stuff on the Kotaku Australia podcast, so that's coming. What about you, Conrad? Where are you on the internet?
You can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You could buy anti-capitalist propaganda and official Jimquisition licensed merchandise at mercenarycreative.com. And you can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatconradzimmerman. Listen to me talk about snacks on Let's Talk About Snacks, available where podcasts are found. And everything I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon? James Stephanie Sterling.
It is true. It is patreon.com/Jimquisition. I live stream as well. I started that back up just before I got fucking sick. I got one round of Exoprimal in at midnight on Sunday. That was when I had the time.
I was wondering why you were on so late. I saw your notification pop up. I was like, it's after midnight there.
I'd wanted to stream Exoprimal since it came out, and it'd been over a week, and I had planned to do it Sunday night, and had gotten I worked as hard as I could, but still didn't get done until nearly midnight, and I was like, fuck this. I'm not streaming again. So did it, and was planning to do it on Monday, and got ill.
Do you think that's what made you
everything
sick? Overworking
maybe
yourself?
No, it was one of the bloody kids that made me sick. I know that much. Whenever a child is sick near me, I will get sick.
Oh, children are illness factories.
Oh yeah, little vectors. Put on earth by Nurgle himself. But yes, I stream, let's see, my upcoming wrestling dates. Got a big one Sunday, this coming Sunday. That's Huddersfield. That's Tidal Wrestling. If you look up Tidal Wrestling, you can get details there. If you can get to Huddersfield on Sunday, do please come along. I'm really sort of excited about that one. I'm in the Women's Rumble match with some familiar Spectrum faces. Freaky Felicia's going to be there. Simon Miller, of course, is going to be there. So do come if you can. The other one that was announced this past week is the one I've been teasing for a long time. This match will be the biggest of my career. It is Commander Stephanie Sterling facing, at last, Kid Bandit, the biggest non-binary wrestler in the world. Facing one of the not quite as big but a big non-binary wrestler. That is at True Grit, August 26th in Leeds. Look up at True Grit Wrestle, and that should get you the details. That is one you won't want to miss. I guarantee you that. I am anticipating it to not only be the biggest match of my career, but the best match, and possibly one of the best things I've ever done in any medium. So do come. I've hyped that up way too much, but it's going to be fucking great. And yeah, I hope you had a fucking great time listening to today's Podquisition. Thank you for listening, sharing, supporting, all of that good stuff, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.